So next up, we have Sean from Asana and Andrea from Docusign. Please give them a round of applause. All right, so I want to set the stage here a little bit. When it comes to carbon literacy, there are different stakeholders, and the work that Sean and Andrea are doing are engaging different stakeholders. We've got Sean, who's engaging employees on carbon literacy, and Andrea, who most recently engaged customers on carbon literacy. So we're going to hear how that went. Here, Sean, you can hold this mic since you're going first. So, Sean, for Earth Day this year, you used the Clever Carbon quiz as part of the Earth Day activations, as well as another carbon footprint quiz. Why did you do that? How did it go?
Yeah, hey everyone, my name is Sean. Employees really love the Clever Carbon quiz. I think we've heard a lot of information and understood the power of information today. And really, unless you know what your footprint is and kind of what the levers are, it's really hard to get excited about making a change. So we issued the Clever Carbon quiz for employees. It's kind of an Earth Day event that we call the Asana Climate Challenge, and I'll talk more about that. But on the next slide, we have some employee comments from taking the quiz that I'd love to show. If we can hop to the next slide. So people were taking the quiz, sharing the results. Some folks were incredibly happy and excited about the results they got. There were some responses that, were a little disappointed and kind of shocked actually at how large their footprint was, even when they're doing a lot of sustainable actions themselves. This last comment, oof, this quiz just came for me. Love that. Braith is a good friend. Really, this was kind of how we started off. The challenge was take this quiz, understand your carbon footprint, and from there we can actually start to take actions to reduce that footprint, both at home and at work.
You also mentioned that it kind of has to do with the Scope 3 initiatives that you're doing as well. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, exactly right. So for us, Asana is a software company. Our actual direct operational and facilities emissions are the tiniest part of our footprint, and most of it is coming from what we call Scope 3, full value chain activities. That's purchasing from our vendors, that's employee commuting and business travel. And one of the objectives of this challenge was actually to get a bit more insight into what employee commuting looked like for us. So we actually, one of the actions people could take was to take a survey to understand their own commuting patterns. And provide us with that information so that we can better understand what that looks like for Asana.
Amazing. All right. So next, we're going to move to Andrea. So Andrea, you recently used the quiz to engage customers at Docusign's customer conference Momentum. Let's pull that up. How did it go?
It went great, Michelle. So Docusign's big annual user conference took place 2 weeks ago in New York City. Hundreds of our customers and partners all come together. It was a biggie for us. We launched a new market, a whole new product. We're not just e-sign anymore. Check it out. We rebranded the whole company, and we also launched a new approach to and a new strategy around social impact under a Docusign.org brand, and part of that shift was an introduction and an evolution of our grant making to a focus on climate action. We had been very tree and forest focused before, wanted to evolve and modernize, and so as part of bringing our customers and our partners and our employees into that conversation, we had an impact lounge in our expo where we had the quiz up on tablets. So we had Docusign branded quiz we can click through, and we had attendees actually taking the quiz live. We then asked them to make a small climate action, the whole concept being just thought-provoking, a nice easy way to start a conversation. It was very casual. And then we actually had an artist who virtually was turning it into one of those graphic images live. So all of the actions that folks were writing on the whiteboard were real-time getting turned into this very cool image that by the end of the day, we sort of had this collective visual of all of our individual commitments and actions. So for us, this was, there it is. So for us, this was really about making sure that we're not just, Docusign has a deep commitment to sustainability as a company, but as we know here, not everybody knows what all of those things means. We committed to science-based targets, we're certified carbon neutral, but all of those things can feel a little exclusive and not necessarily open up the conversation for what does it actually mean, what does that mean for me? So we wanted to create a very low stakes opportunity for folks to kind of get curious, open up dialogue and really think about what we as a company are doing, but also what each of us individually, small and large actions can do.
Amazing, Andrea. Can we go back to this slide where we have the Docusign badge? So you have probably seen the Carbon Newbie version of the badge, maybe you've seen the Clever Carbon version of the badge. There's an MBA version because they're our partners, and now there's a really beautiful Docusign version as well. And so this QR code was in the conference and people could scan it and take the quiz, which I think was really cool. And personally, I'm not a speaker on this panel, but like my perspective was we got to be a part of this Docusign rebrand, which was also like really fun. And tell us a little bit about how people responded to the quiz, like in person as they were taking it.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of curiosity for us. There was a lot of like, what does this have to do with Docusign, which was like the perfect question, because that was like, I would love to tell you. I think there was also one thing that was really cool for me was to just kind of like lurk and listen to some of the conversations taking place. So there was, I listened to one group who went like deep on fast fashion, and it was like a group of women who didn't know each other, who all kind of were thinking about their purchasing habits and making a small commitment maybe in their brain to like decrease their fast fashion shopping. There was another conversation I overheard that this one kind of felt personal to me too. I'm a traveler at heart, and so flying comes with a whole lot of guilt. And we were all kind of talking about like the difference between taking direct flights whenever possible, and so just kind of opening up those, again, like in a safe space, creating space for people to have some of those brainstorming conversations and think about what actions, small actions, booking that nonstop flight instead of that, that like $50 cheaper layover. I thought that was like a very cool way for 600 people who didn't know each other to kind of come together and think about these topics.
That's awesome. I feel like, having been in this position where I try to teach people about carbon footprint, inadvertently I learned so much about it. And so I kind of wanted to hear both of your perspectives, like through, you both aren't necessarily carbon footprint experts, especially as it pertains to our quiz, but through this experience, was there a bit of a learning curve, a learning journey, a self aha? What was that experience like?
I'll go since I'm holding the microphone still. I like absolutely belong in this room. Like I am by no means an expert in any of this. I oversee social impact. There's another team that oversees sustainability, so I'm definitely an imposter in here as well. And I think part of that for me was I mentioned all of those sort of like safe space and small actions because that resonated very much with me, and I think with a lot of people. I think that line around companies and brands kind of talking about things and doing it in a way, I think it was Albert's who was talking about the communication around it and how it's received. It can feel really like that wall goes up very quickly when you start talking about scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. Like most of us don't know the nuance and the detail of what that really means. And so I think for me in my own personal journey, it was like a little bit of permission, and I think what Clever Carbon does so beautifully is to simplify through the education, which like is not, that's not a small task to do. And so I think for me it was like permission to ask those questions, permission to have those conversations, permissions to like, some people get a little pokey about it and want to, how can you talk, how can you give me a footprint in 5 questions? And I think just being able to be like, totally, I have the same questions, and like really open up the conversation. That's like the only way we're gonna move the needle on any of this, right? Is if we like open up the rooms, open up the spaces, make people feel comfortable asking the questions, and then like little by little chip away at like what we all need to be doing collectively.
Amazing, thank you, Andrew.
One of the big insights for us came from, I think I mentioned Asana, the software company. Software engineers like to figure out how things work. And one of our engineers was playing around with, what are the variables that actually affects my results? And so he set his country to like Rwanda, but kept his lifestyle the same, and found that actually like, his footprint reduced, but not as much as you would expect. And I think like one of the really interesting takeaways from the quiz is that there's, you can make a lot of changes in your lifestyle, but there's actually a lot of factors outside of your control. One is like the energy mix of the grid in the country that you live in. And then other things that, sort of like the socialized costs of infrastructure and healthcare and, military, and that's all part of our footprint as well. And it really underscores the importance of policy change and societal change.
Awesome, that's a deep reflection. Thank you for sharing that, Sean. So when I used to work in tech, one of my favorite things was things the company would do for impact. So volunteering opportunities and Earth Day, and I know the two of you are doing a lot of things around Earth Day. So can you tell us about what you're doing at the company?
Yes, so we, one of the programs I run is our employee-facing program. So Docusign has about 6,500 employees globally, and we run a pretty robust matching and volunteering program. We run 2 big initiatives a year, and Earth Month is one of them. So we actually spread it out throughout the month. Throughout the month of April, have had, I think, close to 40 at this point, volunteer events taking place, organized by employees, all of them focused on Earth sustainability. There's lots of cleanups, there's lots of tree plantings, there's lots of engaging with local environmental and sustainability organizations. So I think 40 events in 20 cities we're kind of tracking towards. That all will take place throughout April. Folks can leverage, we have volunteer rewards, so the hours that you volunteer can turn into monetary donations to the organizations that we're partnered with, and I think we're at about $50,000 that's been donated so far through time volunteered just this month in April. So Earth Month's people are very attached to it. Sustainability is one of our 6 values at Docusign as well, and so people feel, I think, Earth Month more so than other kind of impact initiatives that we run with employees throughout the year. It feels really personal. I think it's also very cool. We're about 30% remote, virtual employees too, and so a lot of people will post pictures of picking up litter with their kids, or one woman harvests bees. I don't know what you say, has bees, and so she did this whole thing about how her bee work is her commitment to sustainability, and so it is this whole conversation and kind of this ongoing sharing conversation, learning moment that we have all throughout the month of April across our global employee base.
I also get to host the Docusign team for a workshop. So what you saw in the beginning, that was a 10-minute snippet from my 1-hour workshop for employees or even senior executives, because they don't also have a lot of time to learn about that. So I'm very honored and looking forward to hosting some of my former colleagues and engaging them in this way through Clever Carbon. So thank you for the opportunity. Wonderful. Sean, what's going on at Asana?
Yeah, let's see, what isn't going on at Asana? So one, we closed the Asana Climate Challenge, and here you have some of the results. Who here has used Asana or is familiar with Asana at all? Okay, okay, that's great, actually, fair amount of the room. This was one of the cool things that resulted from us doing this whole challenge in Asana, was we just have this automatic dashboard that tells us, okay, here's how many, 1,700 actions were completed. We've got 165 people that created a climate challenge project. That was a lot of fun. And then we've got other, a number of other different things. One is we've got a green roof at our SF headquarters, and actually yesterday people were sharing photos in Slack of sort of replanting that green roof. We had a employee volunteer activity. And then we had a submission window for nonprofits that focus on climate resilience. There was a pro bono opportunity to earn, the Asana product for free. If anyone has a nonprofit or is related to one, feel free to get in touch with me. Technically closed that submission window, but I'm sure we can work with you. Yeah, and I think also we'd love to learn from folks like Docusign, from Andrea at Docusign, by getting customers involved. I think that's an amazing opportunity.
Wonderful. Well, we're just at about time now, but thank you so much for being here, for raising carbon literacy with your stakeholders and being pioneers in this space and pushing that forward. So a round of applause, please.